Welcome to the Max 101 channel. Now today I have some video that's about 3 months almost overdue, and that is the Catenary wire incident that happened at the beginning of June. It was pretty hot that day. It was in the 90s, and there was just enough tension on the wire. I've talked about it before where as the temperature heats up, there are weights that go down because metal expands and contracts depending on its temperature. So the wire, there will be a weight that will pull on the actual wires to keep them tensioned. And as the temperature goes up, those weights go lower and lower down to keep them tensioned. Well, I guess this wire just about had it, and it's rare for this to happen because the wire snapped. It snapped right as a train passed underneath it. It landed, a piece of the wire landed on the back car of the train, which was car number 233, in case you're wondering. So if you ever get number 233, the wire landed on that car. I don't remember if it was the A end or the B end, but that was the car involved, and there were people on it. In the middle of the day, rush hour was just beginning, the hottest part of the day, and the train was stuck without power. What I'm going to show you now, I was not on that train, which I'm almost kind of thankful for because that would have been a bit scary. It would have made for some great videos, but it would have been a bit scary. And not fun, as some of those passengers were on that train forever with, the power had been turned off, so there was no air conditioning. It was 90 outside. It was probably starting to get to around 80 in the train, and people, all they want to do is just get home. So, this whole ordeal started on this date, and on this date I went out and filmed how they had it set up. So, the Max Blue line was running in 2 sections. It was running from the Hatfield Government Center to Beaverton Transit Center, and then from the Library Galleria 11th Avenue turnaround area all the way to Gresham. So there was no service to any stop between Beaverton Transit Center and the library in Portland. The red lines were also running from the turnaround to the airport, and the green, yellow, and orange lines were not affected, although because of the crazy scheduling things, they probably were affected in some way, especially later at night when trains needed to head back to Ruby Junction. Or Elmonica. Well, now Elmonica, the trains would just be going from Beaverton Transit Center back. This whole ordeal lasted, I believe, 3 days, maybe 4 days. And on the second, whatever that day was that I showed down there, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go film this. Because I was listening to the TriMet radio on the Rose City Transit website, and they were mentioning some very strange procedures. So now let's get into what I did and the strange procedures, and I'll show you little bits and pieces of those. Then I think what I'll do is I'll upload mostly unedited videos, but I'll leave them as unlisted and I'll put them as links in the description. I'll explain in a minute. So, the blue line ran from Hatfield to Beaverton Transit Center and parked in the pocket track at Beaverton Transit Center from the west side. Those switches are not normally used. It's normally red lines are coming in from the east to west into Beaverton Transit Center, so those switches are hardly ever used. And strangely, and I think it was to make sure that the trains were properly spaced, because as soon as one train left Beaverton Transit Center, another one was coming in to take its place. So they had to be pretty close, but that could get a bit dangerous because it's just a single track there for the pocket track. So what they did was you would call in at Milliken Way station eastbound, and then they would give you the go-ahead to activate the gate arms, but you would have to activate them manually. So you'd have to, and I've talked about it in a more recent Max 101 episode about approach circuits and island circuits. When you leave the train, let's say this is the intersection, when you leave the train, if you pull up within 10 feet of the intersection, the gate arms will come down. So even if your call button is broken or whatever is broken, or if you're running reverse traffic and you don't have a call loop or anything, you can still pull up within 10 feet of the intersection, and that will activate the island circuits in the intersection. The gate arms come down. Then, after the gate arms come down, You have to wait for them to be down for 10 seconds, then you sound the horn, not the bell, the horn. And then you proceed through the intersection to the next one at reduced speed, which is 20 miles an hour. So we did that from Milliken at every intersection along the way to Beaverton Central. I'll show you a clip of that. Then, at Beaverton Central, you'd have to call in again, and then you would usually be waiting there for a bit as you waited for a blue line to leave the Beaverton Transit Center pocket going back to Hillsborough. So, you would be sitting at Beaverton Central waiting to go into the pocket track while one was coming back out, and then they would say, okay, it's safe to go, and then you would have to do the same thing. You would have to stop at the Hall Boulevard intersection, although because it's just one intersection that's divided in two, you didn't have to stop at both halves of the intersections. You just had to stop at the beginning, make sure the gate arms were down for 10 seconds, honk the horn and go all the way through. Then you had to stop at the switches, where the switch was that would actually get you into the pocket track at Beaverton Transit Center. You had to stop for it. And you had to observe the switch point and make sure it was set correctly before proceeding in through the switch and going to the end of the switch point in the pocket track, and you would also have to observe it. So there were 2 stops along the way there. Then they would pull through very slowly into the Beaverton Transit Center. Then they had a shuttle bus that would serve all the stops, although when I went on it, it was pretty much during rush hour. Rush hour was basically starting. And so it was very busy. So the bus driver asked the passengers, hey, does anybody need the Washington Park station? Because if not, then we're just going to skip it and go straight into Portland, which they did. So we served Sunset, and then we were going about 10 miles an hour on the Sunset Highway because of the heavy congestion. I'll upload videos of all that if you want, but yeah. So if you want to see the shuttle bus route, the eastbound and westbound, check the description for links, but they're going to be unlisted. I'm not going to upload them on my channel because it'll just seem kind of random and a bit outdated. So I'll post them in the description and I'll label them. Hillsborough to Beaverton Transit Center, Max Shuttle eastbound, Max Shuttle westbound. So when it was going back the other way, you would have to do the same thing. You would need to activate the circuits, and you would need to stop at, I think it's Watson Avenue at Beaverton Transit Center. Then you would have to stop at both of the switch points, stop at Hall Boulevard, honk the horn, and pull into Beaverton Central. But from Beaverton Central all the way to Hillsborough, it was normal operation. And from Hillsborough to Milliken, it was normal operation. So, now I'm going to show you a video of it, but first let me recap how it works. So again, Hillsborough to Milliken was fine. Then you would have to do the intersection thing and honk the horn at the intersections all the way to Beaverton Central. Then you would have to do that again from Beaverton Central to Beaverton Transit Center. And you would also have to stop at the switch point, taking you into the pocket track at the beginning and where it enters the pocket track. I will show you a clip of all of that now. So now that you've seen that, you can kind of see its strange operation. Now, on the way back to Hillsborough, it was pretty much the same, but again, from Beaverton Central all the way to Hillsborough, it was normal. You did not have to honk the horn at any intersection. You could just call the signal as you always would and continue. It was only at the Watson Avenue and Hall Boulevard intersections that you would have to stop. Here's a clip of westbound trains leaving the Beaverton Transit Center. Ignore the announcements. The driver accidentally just set it up for Hillsborough, so it thought we were at Cleveland Avenue and Gresham, and he left it that way for pretty much the whole trip. So ignore the announcements, but take a look at how we were stopping at the intersections and the switch points for the track.
In compliance with federal and state mandates, masks are required at all times on TriMet. Blue Line to Portland City Center and Hillsborough. En cumplimiento con los mandatos federales y estatales, se requiere completar en todo momento en TriMet. Suspende la línea sur en dirección al centro de la ciudad de Hillsborough.
So now, on the Portland side, well, the trains needed a way to turn back around, and so they were using the 11th Avenue turnaround, where the MAX used to end when it first opened, where the red line used to end when it first opened, and where the yellow line used to end when it first opened. It's rarely used nowadays, but for situations like this, where they're like, we need some easy way to turn trains around, the 11th Avenue turnaround is a perfect place to do that. This was quite a while ago, so I can't really remember the footage I got, but I know I got footage of trains in the turnaround, and I believe when I was on the shuttle bus going back to the Beaverton Transit Center, I believe I saw a train pulling in to the turnaround, or maybe it was pulling out of the turnaround or something. I don't really remember. But they pretty much always had two trains. They had two tracks filled up, because as soon as one left, there was another one that came in just a few minutes later. Again, they were turning both the blue and the red lines around in the turnaround. But I believe the blue lines were coming in and they were saying Hillsborough. And they would kick everybody off at Galleria and have them board the shuttle bus. Now this was during the time when they still had the occupancy limit on the buses, so as soon as it got full, there was another bus right behind it, and they would leave, and then the new bus would pull in, and you would just line up pretty much at the Galleria platform. You would line up like you were, at school or something, and you would gradually go into the bus. It was free, of course. And we sat in there. I believe I was on a 28 or 2900 series bus on the way back, and some 3200 or something on the way there. And the shuttle bus, once it got full, they would leave, and that was pretty much it. And then they would serve every stop. You did not have to request for your stop, as a shuttle usually is. Next bus came in and would pick up the next set of passengers or whatever. Usually the busiest shuttle bus was the one that was leaving right after everybody was kicked off at Galleria. So the smart move was, what we did, is we crossed the street, and I was recording the MAX while that one shuttle bus was getting filled up. Then that bus left, I crossed the street, got on the bus, and then eventually the MAX left, so that way we weren't getting on as crowded of a bus. So from there, that train would have gone into the turnaround. There was usually another one there. Red lines, if I remember right, were saying like City Center. They may have switched it to blue line to City Center. It was weird. There was City Center and there were Hillsborough trips. I don't know why they did that. They could have just had blue line to City Center and ended, and then red line to City Center. I'm not really sure why I don't know, it seemed like they kind of overcomplicated it. But yeah, we got on, I believe once I got on the shuttle bus and we left, we looped around 11th Avenue a little bit, so it came up 10th and then looped around 11th. I'm pretty sure I recorded a train either entering or exiting the turnaround, so here's some action of the max turnaround and shuttle bus action. Cool. We get to watch one come in. Alright, well, I think that's pretty much everything. I will post the, I don't know about raw videos, but at least minimally edited videos of... Well, I thank you for watching this video, and I will see you soon, hopefully with some other video.